Thanks very much, Natalie, and welcome to this Association of Christian Media online workshop. And this is, I think, a very interesting and exciting presentation of a system. I'm not sure if it's a technology called FABRIK. I first came across this at one of the community stations in Durban, and was very impressed to see the way in which, as a fairly mediocre station, in my assessment, they were able to use this system to propel themselves up to number one in KZN, and to actually interact with it and to use it effectively. It's a combination of things: a streaming app, it provides listener analysis, a digital community that relates to you. It's a podcast app and a news portal, all in one. But I'm hoping that Anis will be able to unpack that a little bit better for you in the next hour. In fact, he won't be speaking a whole hour. We'll have plenty of time for discussion and interaction. Just to say that we have here amongst the attendees, we've got FM stations, AM stations, internet radio stations and potential internet radio stations, and content providers, including a news provider. So there's a range of Christian media providers, and the system is very versatile, and I'm hoping that we can see how we can use it effectively in our work and ministry. And then obviously the bottom line is, how much is it going to cost me and how do I do it? But we can get to all that. Anis Hassim is going to provide the presentation. We also have Bevan Andreas from Emedia, and Tanya Wakeling. So they're here also to help Anis if he gets stuck, I think. So over to you, Anis. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dave, and good morning to everybody. Thank you for making the time to hear with, I think, a good discussion as we go through this morning, what we have been doing in media. It's certainly one of the most interesting media experiments, I think, that's happening in the country at the moment, but I could be biased. Good morning, I'm Anis Hassim. I'm the lead strategist at Emedia, and we've developed a product, and I'll tell you why and what it is in more detail, but it is a platform for media owners that have been built by media professionals like yourselves. So we're not just technologists. We come to it for a nuance and an understanding of your workflows, your values, and your circumstances. So today, with me, I've got Tanya Wakeling from our business team and Bevan Andrea from a team we call Customer Success and Adoption. One of the things that will happen when you go onto the platform is it will explode your real-time knowledge, data set, and awareness of what's forward. And that's such a radical change for radio. Bevan leads up a whole team to hold your hand and help you interpret what's going on until you've got sort of the training wheels off and you can ride on your own. So that's the three of us from media. Going to share what we've done today. Quick introduction to Emedia. Media is going to be 28 years old in a couple of weeks. We were incorporated on, like every great radio station, it seems, that was slaved to the SABC contracts. 1 April 1995, 28 years ago. So you can see even our DNA is governed by the radio pulse. in South Africa. Immediate is a mashup of immediate media, and it is the relentless pattern of iteration and impact that we see coming from our ever-increasing digitization, or just actually it's been life in general, but the pattern simply means the elimination of lag, our workflow is elevated to the real time, and as it commoditizes, more of us would use technology together, and more personality and intimacy would develop. So consequentially, we are on a journey that increasingly takes us to a deeper shared context, shared conversations about what we've seen, and coming together in a common choreography to purpose when we've decided we want to do something. So we had a particularly interesting juncture in that journey, but hopefully a lot of what we've been building, frankly, over the last 25 years, will resonate with you as it is with many of our current customers. So welcome to my talk. Just a quick foundational view of that change, so that when I demo the product in a minute or two, you'll have a very clear understanding of where and why we're coming to this, right? And we think that, you know, there's been this pattern of relentless iterative change. We used to have physical infrastructure for our communications, radio telegraph and radio itself, television, print. We went digital with online, and that was the connection, and we went more digital with the device, which was the smartphone. And that starts to, this pattern is driven by the network effect, right? More of us being connected together more often to move faster, right? And therefore, you saw the beginning of the social layer, and what a revolution that has been in our world, right? And the big platforms that are out there, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, are all tools that have actually trained us on how to use it. So now it doesn't matter what kind of human being you are. These tools are so accessible that anyone can use them. And that's why these platforms have billions of users, and they're so prevalent in our community. And they are effectively already adopted by our community. Now that means any hesitancy in going digital and building your own coherent interface in a community fashion is going to make you lag behind. People have no time to sift your message from 5 different places. They want to come straight to you, get it, and maybe they'll play around with you on other platforms when they're in a different context and get exposed to it. But when they want to engage, they're going to want to go direct. They're going to want to participate along with you, and they want to have a voice and validation. So in the future, we're at the point now where we think there's a community and creator-driven media explosion coming. The point of the technology and going over the top of these different generations of change has been to include more of us as we do it, right? So like you see how mobile went over the top of landline, social went over the top of mobile. This next wave, and you've heard the buzz about generative AI and these new toolings that are coming, it's going to happen in the next year. Everything and how we do it is going to change. But when you've got your own platform, a structured community around it, and an ecosystem of partners working together with you because your platform brings the community structure, so everybody benefits, you're going to be pretty much incontestable. So one of our core thesis points is community media is the future. Trust-driven, intimate, relevant media, okay? The other thing is you can't build your audience externally from your own control. You had to build your audience on a transmitter. You don't anymore. You had to build your audience on Twitter and Facebook. And then what happens when their value systems conflict with yours? I never joined Facebook. I could see how toxic it was in a society health point of view. And who decided that a drunk 19-year-old should decide on a weekend how we're going to socially create a platform for our future. So you might decide, I can no longer associate myself with that kind of a platform. That doesn't mean, people aren't there. It just means you are taking control of your value system. So that's incredibly important. You have to own your databases, your content, your data. You need intimacy on an opted-in, respectful basis with your community. They need to be able to know transparently, that they can trust you and that you are not being mercenary with their behavior, their information, your relationship with them, right? And you will not breach that trust when it comes to guidance, recommendation, and factual information. That intimacy is going to give you a lot of data. We're going to show it to you for your analytics, for your reporting. What is your audience responding to? What are they engaging on? And it's quite a torrent. And then through an app, which is their companion, your community engages with you with this single companion for everything you do, for the most intimate of your audiences, broadcasting content live and on demand, engaging in conversation like your own private WhatsApp groups, and coming together with push notifications and alerts and messaging to purpose and action. Audiences love it. We have collectively across our entire network now about 1.4 million downloads of a FABRIK-powered app. We have, I think we deliver over 3 million live streams a month and a few 100,000 podcasts. So we know that they love it. We know that they already know how to use it. And if you look at some of our customers and their App Store ratings, you'll see it's very, very highly rated. And the big revolution is everybody knows how to be social on these other platforms. Now they can be social on your platform. So you bring the power of that social behavior. You bring the value, the good value of that social behavior into your media space. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and give a chance for us to share what it is we've built so that you have a better insight into these points. And then I'll come back and just close off with a few points on radio. So I'm going to share my phone screen. And hopefully you are seeing it. Right, so FABRIK is a platform. It means it's more than just one thing. It's a whole scaffold on which you can build your future. As a platform, we don't own your data, we don't own your databases, none of your content. That whole sort of exhaust of your audience when they engage with you is stored and captured into a cloud environment in your tenancy. That means it's not shared with anybody else or mixed up with anybody else. Only you have access to it. And we don't do anything with it. And you're able to instantly stamp out service points for your communities or community from the platform. So the screen you're looking at are some of our current customers who are using FABRIK. As you can tell, when you deploy, it's your branding, your app, and in your App Store account. So you own your audience from the get-go. If you don't have an App Store account, we'll help you set that up. We're just providing you technology at a commodity basis that allows you to focus on what you're good at. So each of these apps obviously represent a portal in to these communities and their audiences. So I'm going to start. Dave mentioned Israel Mzazi. So I'm going to quickly open them up. And you'll see, oops, wrong one, not Maputo Land Community Radio. There we go, the other red one. So it's branded to the station or the community. It's dressed in their livery. Here you can see, before I go in, I'm presented with an advert. These are settings that you will be able to control. But this is a key means of calling to action the community or creating sustainability. In this case, because they don't have an ad, it's falling back to a programmatic ad. But if they had sold an ad directly, that would take priority. So they're a radio station, obviously. So I'm landing on their live streaming. which you can see here at the bottom, and on their sort of rebroadcast, which is their podcasts. So I'm going to hit their live stream. Because they're a radio station, they've got a 24/7 live stream going. Okay, now I'm just for demo purposes going to hit that play again, and hopefully there'll be some appreciation for how very quickly. So that stream is being archived in the cloud from the moment you deploy. So Fabric is also an archival system, and from the cloud and your archive, you can punch out and publish podcasts or even particular audio snippets, re-edit them, and decide whether you want to distribute them again. But we have a mechanism and workflow in a product module called EchoCast that will allow you to create a podcast within 30 seconds of something being broadcast live out to your website, out to your app. So you can see here, I'm just scrolling up a bit. These are all USB's podcasts that they've published. And I can play them, I can download them, I can share them with someone, I can add it to a playlist if it's a particular feature. I'm able to explore the content library. So if I just wanted to go to the jazz podcasts, I can do that. If I wanted to just go to the breakfast show, I could do that. And I can also, as I said, cache that on my device for listening later, because I only have data when I'm at work or at the mall. And I can't copy it off the device, so they can't share it. But every time somebody shares the podcast or plays it, we have analytics that without matching, knowing and spying on you, just in an anonymous aggregate form, we can provide you a lot of analytics on how this content is being consumed. So this is very, very powerful. We can obviously do a couple other integrations, and I'll show you that in a moment. I want to go to a more commercial customer. This is Gagazi FM. They're in our local market here in KZN. They're one of the largest commercial stations in the country. You can see they have sold this billboard. So it's a Showmax advert, and they've got another billboard for an internal station event for their birthday. Now, they have video on the bottom right in the app. So if I tap on video, I'm able to see all of their videos. Now, there's many ways to surface the video. In this case, they're doing the easiest thing of all, which is they're publishing their video to their YouTube channel, and then we've built an integration from their YouTube into the app. And they do their workflow the old way. They just publish to YouTube, but it updates the app immediately. And if I wanted to watch that video on the Soccer Star, I can just tap that, and I can begin.
Richards PFC captain uSiphamandla Mtolo uchazwe njengomuntu obeyimisela kona konke akade kwenza and who possessed leadership qualities. Umtolo bedume kakhulu
watching that on my phone immediately, and as you can see, I don't have to go out to YouTube and fight the interface and get distracted and all of that kind of thing. Right? So they've got a video integration. We are also able to pull content from your website. So their news content is a feed that's coming from their website itself, and I can just tap into that, update the website, it updates the app, and there's no, obviously we don't have anything to do with YouTube or your website or any of these external systems, but where we can, we've written integrations, and where it's important to you, those integrations can be done. Now, this community element I speak of is the magic. I don't just want to receive from you. I want to live and blend and engage with you in the course of my life and context. That's how social media is so powerful, because human beings are naturally expressive creatures. And we know that the return path for radio has historically been very thin. You can phone the studio, or you can, in the old days, send a self-addressed stamped envelope, dating myself, or write a letter. And now, more recently, we can comment on your social feeds. But what we really want to do is have an opinion. And that's why the popularity of things like WhatsApp, voice notes and all that have flowed in, because it brings in that return part, that voice of the audience. And that's a sizzle that our customers really, really love. So to be able to engage and develop this relationship and join the community, I have to establish an identity with you. And to establish an identity, I need to fill in some information about myself that I'm happy to share with you, and establish my connection. Right? So in this case, every community obviously is going to fields that are important and relevant and necessary to them. Okay, so this is this customer's choice username. Everybody has to give their phone number. So unlike all of the other platforms, this is a validated platform in the sense that when you download the app, there's stuff you can do without joining or registering. But to register, we send a one-time PIN to your phone number to validate you and your phone. And that links your identity. So when you send in voice notes or an opinion, or you participate in anything, we actually know it's you, right? So there's no bots or fake accounts or anything like that in the platform. So email is optional in their case. I've already registered, and I registered very early because we were in testing. So they never asked me to update my fields, and they added some of this after the fact: frequency, interest, birth date, location. So you can see, for example, under interests, what do I like? News, music, podcasts, location, gender, okay, male, female, I'd rather not say, which we think is always a very good and respectful option. Enough people will give you an answer for you to derive useful information from it. Don't worry about offending the people who might get prickly because you made it mandatory. So even on employment details, are you a student? Are you working full-time? Are you working part-time? Are you retired? I'd rather not say. I'm going to choose that option. And even they ask even for income. Okay, so I fill in all of this. I get the PIN. I'm registered. And now I'm able to join the community. And the community tab is the one that most of our customers seem to default to, is called messages. So if I tap on messages now, now I'm in the intimate broadcast. Okay, I'm listening along on the stream or the podcast. I've got some groups I can join. I can talk to the station or the media owner. So they call it Kumana Nati, which allows me now to establish a one-on-one relationship between myself as an individual and the approved audience team at the broadcaster or the media owner or the community owner. So this group and this messaging is private between me and the organization. And I can send them a text message, I can send them an attachment, I can send them a photograph, a voice note, and they would receive it in this channel. And this channel has a workflow dashboard called Smashboard, which Bevan will show you in a moment, that typically lives in the studio or with your producers and with your service teams. Below that, I have some active groups. You can see they're called Community Connect, Health Matters, Azimdladlo, FABRIK BTS. And you'll notice that there's a green power button on the right-hand side, and there's a notification bell on each channel as well. That means I can mute it. So if I don't want to get alerts from the FABRIK channel, I can tap that bell, which is giving me some challenges. There we go. Sorry, that's my eyesight. Getting worse. I will no longer be disturbed by those notifications, but I'm active in the channel and I can go in anytime. I don't want Health Matters, so I can switch off Health Matters. And I can see it's there, but I'm not going to get disturbed by it. So this is a soft opt-in and content mixer for real-time information for your audience. And these groups and channels can be anything you want. And I'm going to show you how some of our customers are using it. And you'll notice that on the left-hand side, there's a count of how many people are in that group. And Community Connect is 2,700 odd people. This is the community talking to each other, okay? And this ebbs and flows. It depends on what's happening in the world and in the community. We've seen some massive spikes when that happens. And then these are participatory. So if it's a private channel, only the people who are invited in can see it. So you might create even a deeper zone of intimacy and trust and say all of the ward representatives in the geography have a private channel and you can engage with them, for example. Then there's broadcast groups. Broadcast groups go obviously one way, from the station to, or the media owner to the audience, but we also can delegate trust to particular users to be able to populate these channels. So you'll notice that, for example, EASV's got a channel called Community Safety Alerts. The entire registered audience is in that channel, largely, because they seem to have opted everybody into it and no one has left it. So 23,346 people is EASV's registered audience. That doesn't mean the number of downloads. I think they've had about almost 50,000 downloads, and those people stream them and podcast them, but participating in the community, about half of them have registered. And they're not that great at promoting and marketing themselves. So if I go into these channels, you can see it's read only for me. There's messages on load shedding. This is a really good one. There's a voice note doing the rounds on social media on a weather warning. It's fake news, it's a hoax message. They can send this out in the real time, like a push notification to the entire audience. And then something that we've been experimenting with our network offering on special offers is an opted-in advertising channel, so that people who have this channel on know that they're going to get sponsored or paid for messaging. And it's one of the ways of making the platform sustainable. So 23,000 people in their special offers. To look at a more commercial approach, I'll just have a look at Gagazi. I want to particularly point out, see, they've got different channels. So they've got lots of channels for their different shows and their different features. They've got a news channel. So if I put that news channel on, you can see I'm going to get an alert on whatever the news item is. There's a bit of a link back to the website, so I can read that article without leaving context. I'm still in my Gagazi world. And you'll notice as well that there's a trust badge on these notifications. And that's part of the trust building element in this platform, that when you send information, you instantly know whether you can trust it or not. Now, events, as an example, is a mandatory channel. So they want everybody to have the events channel. And you'll notice that people can reply to this, or not reply, they can react to it. So obviously I can share this, I can give it a thumbs up, I can heart it, whatever the case may be, right? And you can see some of them have done that. But because it's mandatory, I can mute it, but I can't leave. Their registered audience is pretty much 98,000 people. And I say that because when you look just below that, you'll see that 97,285 people have remained in an advertising channel. They haven't left it. And this is pretty much, what you'd expect. It's advertising and paid for messaging. And including 30-second videos, TV ads. Now, why this is interesting is if you look at spiritual shandis, that's entirely opt-in. So I must choose to put this on. But 10,200 people have chosen to put it on. And really what this is an automated Bible verse. Well, that's where it started. Every morning at 5 o'clock, you'd get a motivational or encouraging or inspiring message, right? And that's all preloaded on, you can preload messaging on FABRIK and then schedule it. So somebody sat for an afternoon, loaded up about 100 Bible verses for the next quarter. And every morning at 5 o'clock, the audience came in to get and respond and react to that message, okay? Now, that means something like 10% of their audience voluntarily chose to set up and come and subscribe to this information service. But when they come in, they're seeing everything else. And they're able to go, oh, what's happening in the breakfast show? Right, and okay, great. So you see how it works. I'll show you one more customer on the front end. I'm going to hand over to Bevan on the back end. This is a public broadcaster in the Seychelles. All of these different features I'm showing you are all FABRIK. Different customers have wired in different modules that we have. So there's a service here called Leco. They've taken our catalog function and they've curated music or podcasts, local content only, right? So because they're out in the Seychelles, they want to preserve their local culture and traditions, and they've created a service packaging here with content loaded on FABRIK that is put behind a paywall. So if I now want to listen to this, I've got to subscribe and I pay my app and then I have access, right? That's up to you whether you make that paid for or just a free catalog, whatever the case may be. But what is nice is you can create different themes and content around those themes. I can download that. So this could be a very good home for children's stories, continuing series, content that's very specific to your audience. And then for those who are not broadcasters, this is how a sort of more irregular publisher is using the platform. They're building a community around their content. So in their case, you'll notice we've chosen to land on news directly, right? And if I now wanted to read that article, we've done some work to properly format that, and it's very nice. But in their messaging, their conversations, you can see they've got things like crime and traffic alerts. They have a cycle tour in their region very often, so they've got a channel just for that. Metro matters, and people can engage in that. And then also breaking news and community alerts. And if I go into community alerts, again, it's like water RG. So they're trying to be the trusted, essential source of information. So all of these guys are FABRIK. I won't spend too much more time on it. Bevan's going to quickly take 10 minutes and show you through the back end. Bevan? That sounded awful. But
yeah, thanks.
The back end of the platform.
Thank you for clarifying. Hi, everyone. And thanks again for the time today. Let me just share. Yes, I want to continue. Hopefully you're seeing my screen. So I'm going to just, I could spend hours talking about the back end, as Anish puts it. And just a little bit about my background. I spent the first 10 years of my career in radio as the broadcast and IT sort of guy at East Coast Radio. And I would have absolutely loved to have a tool like this at the time. Anyway, and have spent the last 10 or so years actually working with the team here at Media to build this. So I'm very proud to be able to take you through this. As I said, I could spend hours going through this. So this is going to be a very sort of whirlwind demo of the back end. So we have a couple of back end tools which are all behind. So they're web based, but they are behind login. So you can see how I'm logged in as Bevan. So this is for your team, your production management team, etc. People that need to have the access to be able to view this. These are not public facing websites. So I've already logged in just to save time. So I'm going to first take you through what we call Community Center. You can see the URL at the top. It's community.fabric. And then I have two other applications I want to show you as well. But Community Center really is the heart of it, because this is, in one sense, your sort of CMS for your app, where you can manage some of the look and feel of your app on the fly. But it's also really where you get a lot of the data that Anish has been talking about. So obviously the app captures a lot of that data when people register, what they do in the app, what they listen to. Just one other thing, sorry, to point out, Anish showed you the app. We also do include what we call web widgets. So there is a companion web player for your website, which you can just very easily integrate. It's basically just an iframe. So when you go onto FABRIK, you don't just get the app and the streaming and podcasting there. You will get a streaming widget for your website, as well as a podcast player for your website. And of course, when you're looking at these statistics in the back end, those are aggregated across both of those front ends as well. Okay, so as I said, whirlwind tour. At the top here, you'll see we've got member management. So this is where your team, well, those who need to have access to this sort of sensitive information can view it. So I'm in a customer of ours, the Voice of the Cape. They are a Muslim-based faith community radio station in Cape Town. Excuse me. And you'll see this is their members. So of that registered audience that they have about 7,000 people that have registered in the app. And all the information that people provide when they register is available here. Pretty much all of these screens I'm going to show you, your team's able to export. Obviously, this is the web front end of it, but you can export this database and send it to your email address and the likes. You can also manage members, make them trusted. And he showed you that blue badge in the app. That's where you manage your app membership from this section. You can also go and configure your app channels. So all of those messaging channels, and he showed you in the app, those are configured on the fly in the back end here. So you didn't see the Voice of the Cape app, but these are there. They've also got a community chat. So you can go and create a new channel here or make it a chat group, add the image, the settings around the notifications and those sort of things. All of that is managed on the fly. So it is very dynamic in that sense. Although we do app updates, so all of our customers get an app update every month where we address bugs, we introduce new features, etc. You don't need to have an app update to add a new messaging channel. Those can be turned on and off. If you've got an event, you can create a new channel in the app on the fly and then turn it off when that event is over. Those profile fields that people provide when they register, this is where that's configured. You can also set whether they're mandatory and what the options are when people when people register. So that's the member management section. There are app settings, content moderation, where you can, so if people are being abusive in the platform, your members can report them or flag the message as inappropriate. All of that comes through to here. So your admin or whoever it is in your team that's going to be handling that can come here and see any reports that have been flagged, and they can take action accordingly. So they can ban the user, they can block the content and the likes. So that's the content moderation side, which is very important for the app stores, because where there is user-generated content on a platform, we have to provide that ability. What I would really want to quickly look at is metrics. So this is very, very deep and extensive. So this is, if I'm in the metrics section, which is really all of our data and statistics, I'm on the Now page, which gives you a snapshot of what's happening in your environment in the last hour. So you can see here how many people have been active in the app in the last hour. And at the bottom here, you'll see the streaming for the last hour. They don't have an Ask Us, so that's a flat line, but their web and app stream is showing here. So you can see they've had a bit of a drop off in the last hour, fairly normal after the breakfast show. So that's just and you can change that. All of these date elements that I'm going to show you are, you can choose that, what period you want to look at. You can see it defaults now. I'm on the streaming section, and this is defaulted to the last week. So I'm now on the live streams analytics, and this is Voice of the Cape's view in the last week. You can see the total number of streams. They've had 60,000 streams in the last week, which is about 18% higher than the previous week. How many unique listeners, how many unique countries, the total time spent listening, and the average session duration. And then this is a graph over the last week. You can see on a Friday at midday, Voice of the Cape, they have at 12 o'clock, they have a massive influx to their streams. So you can see we've got 3 graphs here. One is the peak concurrent connections. The other is the total unique listeners, and the other is the total sessions. Each of those, you can turn them on and off if you want to just explore this. And like I said earlier, all of this is exportable. You can download this data set to a CSV, or you can export that as a PDF of whatever you've got on the screen. Further below that, you can see streaming hours by number. Streaming numbers by hour, rather. And again, this is relevant to the time period in question. So this is over the last week. You can go as far back as looking at the entire year, and then you'll see the data reflected according to that. The session length breakdown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can also go and see, you can drill into that and see just app users or just website users, et cetera. Then there's rewind, which you would have seen when Anissa was demoing the rewind screen in the app. that is the on-demand or podcast section. So this is where they will find the statistics of their podcasts. And I really hope I'm not going to have a loading issue here. Unfortunately, I am a member of so many of our customers' environments that sometimes I get some of these challenges. Yeah, I'll come back to that. So, but this is where we have all the statistics for the podcast plays. And here this shows you which are the most popular categories, which individual podcast in the time period in question has been the most popular, how many times it was downloaded, how many times it was shared, et cetera, et cetera. So really useful info there, as well as if you have any pre-roll adverts. The platform supports pre-roll advertising on both the live stream and the podcasts, and we will get those numbers here. Let me see if the screen loads now. I might have to log in again. As they say, demo gods. Give me 1 sec to re-log in on a different browser. I'm going to switch back to the Voice of the Cape. Let's try that again. Streaming. Right, streaming is loaded. Let's go to rewind. Okay, here we go. So this is the podcast. We're still looking at the last week. You can see the total plays in the period, 450 podcasts played in the last week. You can see which are the most popular categories. So you saw those categories in the app where podcasts are grouped, and they can see which are the most popular. And then in the last week, this has been the most played podcast. And you can see total plays, 82. How many times podcasts were downloaded or shared. I'm only looking at the last week, so not massive amounts of numbers here. So that's the podcasting. And then, as I said, the pre-roll adverts would, if they had any, would be displayed over here. So I'm going to switch across now to the apps section. So this is where all the stats around their apps are visualized and able to be exported. Can you guys hear me fine? I'm just checking my connectivity is not an issue.
Yes, sounding good, thanks.
Okay. No, there it isn't loading. And if you wouldn't mind just while I'm trying to get this to load, getting it on your side. Okay, so the acquisition is loading. Right, so there are a couple of screens in the app section. So this is information specific to the apps. Here, what we will see is a graph which just shows the engagement over time. So very much like the streaming graphs, we will see, particular times and days when people were using the app a lot more, what they were doing in there. The acquisition screen is really a similar sort of graphs and stuff which shows you your app downloads, when people download it, on which platform. We do provide the app on iOS as well as Android, and if required also on Huawei. So we get the data from those app stores, and that pulls in the data of how many times and when the app was downloaded, when people registered, and all those good things. And then this screen is of that registered audience. So everyone who has registered with you, they obviously provide information like their date of birth. If you're asking that, whether or not they're employed, this is the Voice of the Capes. And then this is where we visualize that data, that database. So you can see in the case of the Voice of the Cape, this is their age demographic across their registered audience of 6,500 people. So again, you can export this, very, very valuable information in terms of things like gender breakdown across their audience. You can see the rather not safe coming in at 4% there. 258 people said that. Home language, etc. So these are all the profile fields that people provide when they register in your app, which you can then, visualize in this form. Right, that's mainly it. There's just one other aspect which I wanted to show if it loads is the advertising section. So if you are running campaigns, billboard campaigns, etc., there's quite a lot we can do. They're not just static billboards. We can run polls and surveys and all those good things. The statistics of those are all viewable here. So if I quickly load one of these, nomination VOC, the Voice of the Cape actually ran an election for their 12 sort of regions. They ran that via the platform, and this is the data. This is the data set of the people who actually engaged with that specific advertising campaign. So yeah, all really good there. Let's move across to Smashboard and Echocast because I'm aware of time. So Anise talked about Smashboard. So this is a tool that typically runs 24/7 in the studio, but of course, being web-based, it can run in multiple different locations in your broadcast environment, if for those people who have access. But Smashboard is effectively the messaging dashboard. So this is where all of the app messages, and Smashboard can also integrate with your Facebook and Twitter accounts as well. So really, it's a single view for your presenters, producers, anyone else who needs to see it, of all of everything that your audience is saying to you or about you on the social platforms. So I'm in another customer of ours now, and you can see in the last 3 hours, they have received, the system has processed 577 messages. You can see we've got Twitter, Facebook, and app. If I want to just look at app messages, because I want to demo this to you, I'm now just seeing app messages. You can see there's a voice note, which I'm not going to try and play because I don't think I have my audio shared, but click on the message. You can see this person Arthur K, that's their username, sent this 13-second voice note, and that'll play out. And then below that, we will see Arthur's cell phone number, and you can see there all engagements. So this is a complete cloud sort of track record of all of the messages from Arthur K, as well as if I replied from Smashboard, which you can reply to Arthur directly. Any replies from Smashboard would also show here like a complete message history. So any of these messages in Smashboard can be replied to, and if you're replying to a tweet, it'll obviously go back to that via Twitter, etc. So these are where all of the incoming messages are landed. We also surface trending terms across Smashboard. So whether it's messages received by Twitter, Facebook, or the app, any of the trending or the most popular terms will be coming through. So you can see this Nivea Men Deep is a keyword there's been 512 messages with that word in the last 3 hours. So they're clearly running some Nivea campaign at the moment. There's also the ability from Smashboard here to compose a message if you're wanting to send a message out to your app audience, or if you wanted to send it out via Twitter or Facebook. That can all be done from within Smashboard as well. So if I want to send an app message, and in YFM's case, I want to send a message to Win with Y. So maybe there's a competition. Yeah, I can type the message. I can add an attachment, which can either be an image or a GIF or audio or video. And I can schedule this post. So like Anise said, you can schedule these beforehand. If I want to send this message out at 5 a.m. tomorrow, I don't have to do it tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. I can do it now and schedule it. And then this will, when I click send, this will go to the Win with Y message group or channel in their app. Right, so that's very quick. We can also run campaigns from here. So if you're running competitions, there's something called Campaign Manager, which aggregates all of those competition entries, and you can pick a winner from the platform via that function. You can export that complete set of entries and the like. So Smashboard really is, and we'll obviously take you through this in a lot more detail in our training. Ensure your team is equipped to how to use it. But pretty powerful, and everything to do with messaging, inbound and outbound. Right, then just lastly is Echocast, which is our other CMS for managing your on-demand content. So I'm back in the Voice of the Capes app here now, and these are all of their podcasts, if you want to call them that, or on-demand content pieces that they have created and published in their app. You can see most recent at the top, But if you're looking at Voice of the Capes app, this is pretty much what you'd see in their rewind screen. You can listen to these podcasts, you can unpublish them, you can download them, edit them, and you can share this this podcast specifically on your website if you wanted to. So this is the iframe code, which you could then just paste in an article in WordPress or on your website. So this is their existing content where they manage it. But just to touch on what Anis was also referring to earlier, when FABRIK is deployed in your environment, we send a device to you which basically captures your audio as you're broadcasting it. We then bring that up into our cloud servers where we archive it, and we obviously stream it for the live stream. And then we allow your team to be able to use that cloud archive to create content. So I'm in Voice of the Cape. If I click on this cloud, download from the cloud button, I can enter my email address here. And if I'm looking for something that went out on air this morning between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., I can just put in that time here. I think we allow up to 3 hours per request. Obviously, you can do shorter if you know exactly the 5 minutes that it was done, and then I can click request. And now within about a minute or two, I'm going to get an email with a link to download that 1 hour, whatever went out on air between 7 and 8 this morning. Then your team can, of course, have that 1 hour of audio, and they can edit it and they can upload it as a podcast if they want as well. So if you have content on your machine that you now want to publish in your app and on your website as a podcast, you can just click on this button, choose the file in your machine, give it a name, assign it to a category, et cetera, and you can also add an image to that if you want, and you click save, and then within a minute that will be available on your app and on your website. So that's the kind of more typical
Devin,
podcast
if I can just
workflow.
add to that. Devin, sorry, if I can just add to that. This is also obviously a great compliance and proof of play tool for your partners, advertisers, and ICASA. So a number of our current customers have had a really easy time providing that kind of information back. It's all right there.
Yeah, so you can go back. They can go back a year if they want, and go and find something that was broadcast between 7 and 8 a.m. this time last year. So as long as it's in the cloud and it's accessible for your team, whether that's your sales team or whether it's an advertiser or whether it's the program manager wanting to do some Snoop, whatever they're called, Snoop sessions to create the presenters, that's all available for them. And very quick, I mean, it replaces from our radio days and the IT side, having to deal with our tracker system was a very time-consuming process. So that just short circuits a lot of that. The other sort of, I think what's key about FABRIK and EchoCast in terms of podcasts is this live capture. So if you'll see here, so that's I've showed you the more typical sort of podcast workflow around how to publish content. But there's also this, you'll see this red button, start recording. If I click on this now, and so EchoCast is also another tool that typically runs in the studio. We can create presets for one button recordings, but if I'm about to do an interview right now, and I'm the radio host, I will just hit this record button and open up my mic and do my interview. And you'll see this has got a little timer here to indicate that it is recording. Although we are recording everything 24/7 in the archive, this is now just one step closer to allowing the presenters to capture their podcast or the content they want to create into a podcast in real time. So they don't have to go and pull it down from the archive. They can do this, do their interview. At the end of they can pause it as well. So if they want to, if it's a multi-part interview and they want to, go to a spot break or play a song, they can pause it and they can come back and carry on. And at the end of that, I'm not going to do this because I am in the Voice of the Capes environment, so I'm not going to save it. But they will just click save. I'm going to discard. They will just click save, give it a name, and do they want to publish it or not? They don't have to publish it. And then once that file's saved, it is published and available straight away. So literally 30 seconds after broadcast, that piece of content can be made available to your consumer or your listener via the various platforms. So that's a quick nutshell of what we provide in the back-end side. There is more to it, and I really look forward to being able to take you guys through some of the detail. So thanks for that. Anis, back to you.
Thank you. I know that was quite a rapid walkthrough, but I think that's what some of the power that FABRIK brings to you. There's a ton more. We'd be delighted to take you deeper if you are interested. But Dave, over to you. Thank you. We'll take some questions and observations.
Well, yeah, I think it's a whole system. It's like now I've been introduced to a jumbo jet when you've been used to a Piper Cub or something. It's there's just so much there, and it kind of does it all. Just one question from my side before I open to the floor. You were kind of looking at figures there of 90,000 in your community. Does that mean that there are that kind of number of people that have the app on their phones, or is that, am I reading that right?
So to give you a sense of the numbers you'll be working with, there will be the members of your community who download the app, right?
Yes.
At that point, you've got a choice to make that a simple registration or a registration and approval, but without going into that detail. So say 100,000 people download your app, right? You'll have some services that are free. They don't need to register, like maybe streaming or podcasts or a news feed. But the 100,000 download, some between 40–50% in the community layer will register with you. Our commercial clients go up to about 80%, right? So that registered number that you're seeing in Gagazi with 90,000 is from the universe of people who touched them and downloaded them, who they effectively converted over the registration bump. So maybe the registrations were 140,000 downloads and 90,000 registered, right? Now, that does not mean that 140,000 people come to you every month. That's going to wax and wane depending on your audience retention strategies, your relevance, what's happening in the world, that kind of thing. So from the registered audience is important because they are the guys you can tap on the shoulder because they've registered with you and you can push them a message, right? So you can bring them in rapidly. Now, some portion of those guys might unload your app because they don't have space on the device or for whatever case. So that's not active on device. That's just your registered database. The real metric that we track is your what we would call your monthly active users, registered or unregistered, okay? And in a case of a typical broadcaster, that would range somewhere between 15 to 20% to 25% of their registered audience. And obviously, looking at that number over 3 months, that would give you more uniques. So it's like Cube, right? Where do you want to draw your digital cube? When the station says they've got 100,000 listeners, it doesn't mean there's 100,000 listening right now. But in the cumulative course of a week, they reach 100,000 people, right? But that's the joy of the platform. You can draw your narrative however you want to put it. I get 50,000 people I can push a message to that may act on it. I do have 20,000 people who come in every month for one reason or the other. So that's when you get into the realms of stats and lies.
Dave, if I can just quickly add to that, I think it's a great question, and we get it a lot working with our customers. Everyone's looking for a benchmark, and if I had to draw the aggregate across all of our customers is probably in the region of about 65%. As Annie said, some of them on the lower end, and about 45% of the downloads of those download numbers go on to register, and on the higher end, up to about 80–90% of the downloads. So it really is the character and the nature of the broadcaster themselves. And the number one challenge with this for our customer success team is working with our customers to adopt the product. And some of them adopt it really well, fly with it. And a lot of that comes down to how well it is integrated with the broadcast itself. Are the presenters really pushing the fact that they have their own show channel on air? Because those sort of things, because the messaging aspect is behind registration, if the audience feels like they're missing out because the breakfast presenter posted some picture in his channel in the app, people are naturally going to go on and register. So those sort of things, those soft elements really encourage the registration process. And of course, as an entity, that's what you're looking for. You really want those high registration numbers because you know a lot more about the people, and they're a lot more intimate and part of your community than if they're just anonymous, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Yes, Cananello, you have a hand up.
Good morning, and thank you for the presentation. My name is Cananello Mapoko from Radio Veritas. Just a few questions from my side. Firstly, what caught my attention when receiving this invitation is the possibility of being able to measure our listenership, because that's always a very big question mark, whenever we engage with stakeholders. So it's very evident that it is possible. However, I just want to confirm this. In order for us to get that analytics, in order for us to get that data regarding to our listenership, one, does it mean that people need to register on the app and or be on the app in order to derive that information? Or can you also get, by virtue of having this app, can you also get listenership information regarding to people who are listening on the radio station, but not necessarily linked to the app? Is there some kind of link there? And yeah.
No, finish your question, ma'am.
Okay, so that's the main question that I needed to ask. And once you've set up this app for a radio station, do you have some kind of support that you provide? And how does that support look like? Is it on demand or once a month, or is it an additional cost, or how does it work?
All right, I'll take the first question first, and then I'll talk in more broader terms about how our engagement works with you. So we can measure what we can see, frankly, right? So that's why the platform is important, because the platform integrates all your various surfaces, if I can put it that way, whether it's your website, through the web widgets, or the app. So in that model, we can report on what we are able to see. And then secondly, we can report on both registered and unregistered. So when you're looking at a live stream, for example, we can tell you how many people consumed it from the registered audience and also from the unregistered audience. But you also have the choice of what to make available behind that registration. So that's the first thing. We can report on what we see. The second part of your question relating to measuring audience. So what we found is, it's very, very difficult to be definitive about this, because we kind of all know the problem with the data gathering space and our challenges when it comes to interpreting data from sources like RAMs and now BRC audience data, because sometimes their methodology is not that great for measuring communities like ours. And that means that we never had a good picture to start with. What we have found, and what we can absolutely tell you with confidence, is that the digital data that you get is enough of a statistical proxy to infer what your analog audience is doing. So if I use a very quick anecdote on that, one of our broadcasters did a relationship advice show in the evenings, and sometimes it spoke about sexual health and mental health. And we started to notice a very big spike on streaming and on the podcast elements, particularly around Thursdays at 7 o'clock when this feature aired. With our team, we were able to alert them to the fact that this was the kind of content that clearly people felt they didn't want to put on the radio in the kitchen, or where everybody can hear it. They wanted to hear it on headphones, and they turned to their digital devices, and they did so. And what that meant is that content was particularly compelling, and we could see that in the way they were sharing it as well as the way they were engaging with it. So seeing that behavior is like effectively I can tell you that the broadcasters who have come onto Fabric have night vision compared to your night blindedness. They were able to double down on that content because they could see the ripples in their night vision, that their audience was moving and flocking to that. Similarly, when it comes to other things like how your audience behaves and what they find responsive in terms of campaigns, you see these patterns. So it's a very good proxy and very important reason why you want to be able to serve your audience directly in the main and be intimate with them, because it gives you all of that data. And you can adapt very, very quickly. I mean, in one case, one of our customers thought the Tuesday presenter was better than the Monday presenter, but it turned out from the engagement data, it was the other way around.
And
I'll come
the
to
second
the
question.
engagement model last. I'll just wrap up with that at the end. Let's take a couple more questions.
Okay, sorry, if I can just summarize that question, because it is a big one. You are, broadcasters that have FM, AM, and analog, as well as the app. You are extrapolating, you're assuming that the sampling on the app is giving you the same information that your bigger FM, AM audience, or possibly bigger FM, AM audience is the same. But if you go to RAMs or anything like that, it is a sampling of about 1 in 1,000, and you probably find your stats on Fabric are better than your RAMs stats, and they are more representative.
So if I can give you an example there, just to talk to that. If I look at one of our bigger stations, they might have a monthly active audience in the tens of thousands, right? Although their RAMs might say they have 900,000 listeners. But those tens of thousands coming in that month are statistically, VRC does surveys on a sample size of 200 or 500. You're doing a sample size of 30,000 just in 1 month. So it becomes a very, maybe you get a feel for this as well, because your team will start to understand the audience, and they will see things we'll never see because you know the audience, right? And that's the point of the platform. It's the secret thing about it is it immerses you in this digital world, and then your team start to join dots as a team on how they serve that audience better, right? So it's actually got very little to do with the technology, but how it empowers the team sort of behind the pane of glass. Now, just to talk about that for a second, adoption transformation is critical because it exposes teams too, right? So the marketing team doesn't have to wait for the end of the campaign report to figure out whether the call to action for the event is working or not. They're going to know that within a couple of hours. And they can adapt on the first morning of the week of the campaign. But there's no excuse to say I didn't see it because it's all there. Similarly, for the program manager, if you can see, that the DJ call to action is not resonating, we need to be more creative. We'll switch it up. Now, management can see that. Your advertisers can see how their competition is running. That takes a lot of maturity and trust then. To be able to include everybody in the team, bring them together for teamwork, and say, this is not politics. The data gives us enough information to understand where we need to be adaptive. Now, that's a pretty big cultural shift in radio, which has never had to, and excuse my French, serve the audience. But when the audience puts their hands up and says, tell me, how do I enter this competition again? And suddenly you're a service point, right? And so that means we've got to be listening, we've got to be responsive, and we've got to be collaborative. For that to help you and to talk to Kananelo's earlier question, Bevan's adoption team, customer success and adoption team, don't just help you use the platform, they help you do the digital transformation journey in your team to make sure that you're able to get that. And from that perspective, we break up the costs because different customers choose it differently, but effectively it's three elements you can draw from. The technology, I just want to use the platform, get launched, get the training, and I'll operate it myself. That's the platform as a service, and that's the monthly costs that you see on our website. That we call that the A. The B part of that is managed services to you to help you deploy the platform, retain audience, grow audience, maybe convert commercially, sustainably, and that's based on a bucket of hours where you get training, you get support, you get a bit of things that your team doesn't want to do, like support end users and work with your team internally for transformation. So those are defined managed services around a defined set of offerings that will mix and match as you wish. And then the C, or the last part of it, is consulting strategically, where we work with your team to go on a longer journey of transformation and sustainability. You get 3 months of customer success and adoption in your sign-up package, and you'll get 3 months of consulting in your sign-up package. And then if any particular entity wants to go further, we'll have a better understanding of what do you need and what's essential and how we tune that for your particular budget. So you don't commit to anything that you don't need or don't want, but it's all available to you, absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Adele Barshoff, your hand up there, thank you. Unmute.
Sorry. Hi, yes, thank you so much. It's been very informative. I've got 2 questions that I just wanted to check with you. Well, the first one's not really a question. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what the platform is for, if you don't mind. So it's something that you can have all your things in one place. Is that correct? So
yes.
If Impact Radio has an app, and if Impact Radio has a streaming platform, podcasts and everything, as well as any communication line that we have, we can use, for instance, the Smashboard to be able to see all of those in one place. Is that right?
So when you deploy Fabric, it replaces some of the services you might currently have. So it includes streaming, it includes podcasting, it includes messaging. So you might want to switch off maybe SMS, for example, depending on you, right? But there are elements of the platform that replace what you currently have. That's important for us to.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you would cancel like the existing streaming providers you have, or the existing apps we have. Those we would cancel and basically rebuild a new one through you.
Fabric replaces that functionality. It takes us about 2 to 4 weeks to launch you. So if you said you want it today, it's not like 5 months away. It's a few weeks away. And the longest part of that journey is your team rehearsing and getting ready for launch, not from the technical point of view. We can launch you in a week, if you're ready technically. So, but because it's a converged service, that we want you to be able to take ownership of data. We don't want you to share that data with anybody else. So if you're streaming, then typically there might be services that are taking that data and not selling it or aggregating it. And then you can possibly might end up in a situation where your trust with your audience is breached because their data got out some other way. And that's what we're trying to preserve, trust, right? So to do that, we've had to consolidate a number of services. That's also helpful because it actually saves you money in the long run. It brings coherence to the organization, and it consolidates what used to be disparate payments or services, right? So for example, it also includes, as Bevan pointed out, the archival tool, because it's archiving in the cloud as well. So you might be paying for equipment on site to record, as an example. That may no longer be relevant. It's also a POPI compliance and CASA compliance tool as well, because of the convergence, your audience, when they engage with you, you've got an audit trail of it. You've got the information stored in a secure, privileged way that you can manage. So it's hard to describe the value except to say that there are elements. So it won't be, suddenly I'm going to find a whole new budget, because there would have been money you would have been spending on an app on streaming, on podcasting, on archiving, and then working out from there how you apply your personality to the platform. And the reason we say it's a platform is because we also want you to look at your community and see who you can elevate and transit and bless that trust with. So there might be other community organizations that are active and engaged with the same community, but they could have a channel in your app. And as a result, the audience comes in and gets value from you and from them. But all of that remains private, owned by you, and you only share that with whoever you want to share that with. So it does replace some of those services.
And then I also just wanted to know, so we have a direct WhatsApp line in our studio, and we at the moment are sitting on a large number of contacts from our listeners on that line. Now, does WhatsApp integrate with your Smashboard, or do you have a completely separate, like if we had to ask you to add that to the Smashboard so that our presenters can see the WhatsApps coming in from that line, that direct studio line from the listeners, would that be something you can add, or do we need to use your messaging service that's within FABRIK?
So yes, we can add it. Yes, you can use our service. Yes, you can use both for different purposes, right? Okay. So remember, for a variety of reasons, we want to capture them onto our surface as intimately as possible. And when I say our service, I mean into our intimate community where we can engage with them. So you already have a WhatsApp-like functionality in the platform. So when we talk about the external surface then, like Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, we are not saying you must not be there. What we're saying, what will happen is you'll change your relationship with them to a degree, because it'll be where your audience finds you. In their context, they're streaming, they're going through their feed, or they're looking at their messages, right? Now, that means what you do is you don't give them everything there. You entice them and invite them over to a deeper, more meaningful engagement in your own environment. So you might want to have some elements of your call to action come in via that, right? As opposed to, say, Twitter or WhatsApp. So the public social spaces or the big mass platforms become discovery. You need to be there for the reach for different things, but you should, in theory, ensure that most of your important messaging and your most valuable messaging is done from your own platform, because that's what allows you to get the insights, see the audience, join the dots. So for example, you might have a very large WhatsApp database, but can we segment them, and can we say, I want to send this message only to women, or over 18s? You can do that in FABRIK, right? When you're targeting display billboards and stuff like that. And that's the value of the registered audience in FABRIK, that segmentation and analytics that you get. So different stations have different personalities on that. You come to it for the right reasons, for your audience and how to be of service to them. So it's not an either or, it's not an either or.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
That's your question. Thanks, Adele. Then there's another question here. If you've got person maybe registered, must a person be registered in order to access the content in the app? The question to that is no for most of the content, as far as I can assess that. It may cause a problem for people in countries close to the gospel, in other words, to register that information for security reasons. Can two or more different target audiences run on one FABRIK account, or is it a matter of a separate accounts for each service?
Okay, let me take the last one first. So FABRIK can do multi-stream on audio. So if you as a content provider had two broadcasts, we can have the audience tune into the one they want, as an example, right? Or switch between them. But you would have to, there would only be one identity, if I can put it that way. And that's where you've got to figure out, what that is.
Yeah, I think I can perhaps ask this question in a different way. You've got two opt-in groups here with different criteria for opt-in. In other words, one of them you may want more information on, or the other may be those that want to give you less information. The stream will be the same, or the content they can access will be the same, but there will be, different people can opt into different groups. That's the way.
So remember, you don't have to ask all of that opt-in information to the extent that our customers have done that, right? Mm-hmm. You could just say, I want your name, I want a phone number, right? Because the phone number is the one thing that is mandatory to have them engage with you, right? So these groups require registration because we have to know who they are. That's a compliance issue as well, because the app stores have compliance and like suspension reporting policies that need to be in place, which is not possible if you're anonymous. So the only thing that is mandatory is the phone number. We've got countries from all around the world using it. So I'm not aware of any particular regions having a problem registering. And then lastly, if you ask nothing other than registration, and that's all you knew, you could then build up a deeper profile by what we have a tool called surveying in public. So you might say, here is content that I need you to upgrade your profile fields for to access. For example, I need to know your role, then I can send you the right content. For example, right? So you can get them to add into those fields your knowledge base of that through surveys and polling, where you can add in those extra fields, and just for that campaign, you'll have that extra information about them. And then we can figure out, how do we sort of segment you and split you up? It might be that, maybe you're a sub-community and we put you in your own environment. So there's a lot of options when we get to that.
Great, thanks very much. We have about 5 minutes to run. Any last question? Otherwise, I've got a few I want to just finish with. Anyone else wanting to? Canelo?
Thank you. Just two quick ones. You had spoken about ads on the app. I wanted to confirm who the money goes to. Does it come to the station if we have advertisers? And the last question is, who creates the groups? Would it be, no, that one was answered when Bevan did his demo. Thanks.
Okay, so the commercial inventory, we will charge you a sort of campaign fee depending on the size of your audience and that kind of thing, because it's literally dependent on the number of people you have registered or who are going to potentially consume that content. And there's a cost of delivery, and there's a cost of processing of analytics and reporting around those things. But the rate card is yours. You decide what you want to sell that for. So argument's sake, it might cost you 100 Rand to run a billboard or an advert, and you sell it for 800 Rand, 500 Rand, 1,000 Rand. It's up to you. You set the rate card. It's your content, it's your audience, and it's your opportunity. And you're only incurring the delivery cost if you've made that sale. We've got 3 models. You sell directly at whatever you want to sell at. We can aggregate you into a network to deliver your audience programmatically to people who want to run a pre-roll or run a generic campaign, but they're not necessarily targeting you specifically. So if you don't sell it, we'll try to monetize it at the network level. And if nothing happens, it falls onto programmatic advertising. So programmatic audio is coming in a few months. We've got programmatic display. So if you don't sell a billboard from the environment, you get your account from Google in the system that throws up advertising that's relevant to that audience. In that circumstance, there's a cost of sale to the commercial inventory, and if I had to sort of put a shaping on that, it's probably around 15 to 20% of what our customers sell it for, right? And then where there is programmatic inventory, the typical environment where you're paying your subscriptions, I think it's 80% of that comes to you. So we charge a service fee, but the bulk of the money goes to you. And that's our model. It's to empower you to go digital, be sustainable, and make a business out of it. We are not the business, we are the platform. So we want you to make money, because the more money you make, the more you're going to use the platform. And that's what we do and focus on.
Great. Thanks. I think that's a very good note to kind of wind up on. This also, the other question here is, if there is enough interest, and I'm not sure what defines enough interest, whether we can negotiate some sort of ACM bulk discount, even if you make, Natalie here somewhere, but we can talk about it, even if we make ACM responsible for collecting the funds, because we do that for NAB, for example. And so ACM pays NAB and we collect it from the members. So that sort of model is a possibility. Is that kind of thing negotiable?
It is very much so, and we encourage it, because if more of your members adopted the platform, it actually gives you a structured space as an association to syndicate content, run campaigns across a common audience of purpose, and also present yourself to the outside world as a single sale, which is also very compelling. And so basically, you will be stronger together, and we will definitely take that into account, because you're almost going to be more viable together, if I can put it that way. And remember, although we charge you monthly for the platform, that's like buying I'm going to mix up analogies here, but that's like buying the car, right? We don't make money from selling you the car. We make money from selling you the fuel, where it's a bit of the fuel that you're selling to make your revenue, right? So if you're not making money, we're not making money, your monthly fees don't cover it. But if you actually have a plan to aggregate, commonly execute, that means you're going to be more likely to sell and sell more. So for us, it's a level of how much do we need to keep the lights on? And then what is your possibility of selling and making a fair amount of revenue with our help? And we blend the price accordingly. And in your case, because you're a coherent institution with integrity, with real members, I mean, obviously that's negotiable. And we'd be open and keen to do so. As I said, our best customers are the community-based groups that are already a community for a reason, or one reason or the other.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's encouraging. We'll feedback on that. There's a question here. What is the kind of range of fees? The figure that I've used is 10th hour a month. And
yeah, there's some variations in that.
Yeah.
It depends on whether you need Android only, whether you need iOS, whether you need Huawei App Gallery, those different ecosystems. Depends on how much of the managed services, and the C you want. That's definitely something as an association I think you can benefit from. If you're prepared to have everybody trained together, be educated together, instead of us doing it individually, we can definitely offer a much more compelling start point. But typically it ranges, from about 10,000 a month all the way up to tens of thousands a month, and more depending on our customers. But the main two entry points 10,000 a month is Android only. And then if we add in Apple iOS and Huawei App Gallery, which are two different environments again, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's around 25 or 30 a month. So those are the two sort of jumps. But with enough members joining up and scale, those things can be negotiated.
Good.
Okay.
There's
I just
a
needed
question.
to ask quickly
Yes.
something about archiving.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think maybe, well, first thing is just a comment that, so this doesn't necessarily replace BRC, because we know how everyone has not been happy with BRC. This doesn't necessarily replace BRC stats, because of course you measure only what's on your platform. So that's, yeah, okay. And then number two is on hardware. What sort of hardware then would you need from the station to use this? Then
Yes.
my
So-
third question is, last one on archiving. How much cloud space do you give a station, and how long then? In other words, how big do you store the files? How long then do they stay in the archive?
Okay. So very quickly, absolutely correct. This doesn't replace BRC. BRC have a place and a space in our industry. But this does give you a very much more detailed picture around your audience. Secondly, from an archiving point of view, your archive bin, if I can put it that way, is part of that plan tier that you are on. So that goes anywhere from 1 year to 5 years, or permanently, depending on where some of our customers are getting to now. And then lastly, the equipment that's required is that same little bit of equipment that Bevan was speaking about, that we will configure and send to you, which you plug your broadcast output into from your desk or your playout system. And all we require is for that piece of equipment to have a steady internet connection, so that you don't interrupt your archiving to the cloud. And that really, I think it's on average about 15,000 rand, but that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
And that 15,000 is refundable from us if you use our equipment. So if you change to another provider later, you'll get that money back.
Great. Okay, thanks so much. I think we've run out of time. Well done. There's a lot to go through. Having sat through a little bit of the presentation, the sort of second time round now for me, I've got things much better today than before. So it's been very interesting. And I think we'll follow up from here, from ACM side, just see what the follow-up interest is. Obviously, is that the price is a big factor, but you're getting a lot. You're getting a lot for the money. Natalie, I don't know if you've got anything to finish up with.
No, I just wanted to thank Anise and Tanya, and thank you, Dave, for putting together this workshop and for making sure that it happened. And thank you for everyone for attending. And I will make the recording available to all of you who attended. So if you want to go through this again and watch it again, you can do so. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Natalie, and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.